Mike Dewsnap lived for the thrill of mountain biking. A competitor in the four-cross racing circuit, he'd stood on championship podiums, even racing alongside his son. But one day, on a jump he'd done 100 times before, everything changed. Mike went over the handlebars and found himself paralysed from the waist down. The road to recovery wasn't easy. Mike had to relearn everything, from getting dressed to navigating life in a wheelchair. There were setbacks, times when frustration took over, but every time he fell, he got back up. Mike didn't just stop at recovery. He found a way to get back to the trails through adaptive mountain biking. It's a different ride now, but his passion for the sport burns just as bright. With his son by his side, Mike's still the mountain biker he's always been, pushing limits and finding new heights of personal growth. This is his story. Mike Dewsnap, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm very well, thanks, man. The reason I wanted to get you on the podcast is because I've seen a lot of your posts on social media, and you seem to be very keen, adaptive mountain biker. You're a paraplegic, the same as me, and I feel like we've got a lot in common. And I purposely didn't do too much research on you because I wanted to have a genuine get to know you in real time conversation. Maybe you can tell me a little bit about how you got into mountain biking and what it meant to you in your life before your injury.
Well, I was into mountain biking from the teenage years, and I've always been into it. And I was like previous to that, as a kid, I raced motorbikes, and I sort of grew out of that and started living my life and not being able to afford to race bikes. Mountain biking was the next sort of cheaper option kind of thing, and that sort of scratched that itch that way. I got into mountain bike racing in about 2014. I discovered four-cross racing, which is basically, if you can imagine, a downhill racing crossed with BMX racing. So there's four people down a sort of gravity-fed track and a downhill track, jumps and berms and stuff like that. So I did that for sort of 5 or 6 years. The mountain biking, or motorbikes and mountain biking, has always been part of my life. So that's my thing.
Yeah, I saw some videos that you sent me, and a lot of them were you were holding up trophies. So it looks like you were pretty good at what you were doing, and you were certainly very enthusiastic and passionate about it.
I did all right, actually. Yeah, I was British Four-Cross Series winner 3 times. I got won national champs in veteran category twice. So I did okay, really. So it was really good fun. I've always had that competitive sort of edge to me. So it's something I've always been passionate about. Work.
Yeah. So take us back to the day of the accident, and if you can recall in as much detail as you'd like, because I think you got injured doing that four-cross event, right?
Yeah. So it was September 2020, and it was COVID time. So I think at that point we were sort of being allowed to play out again and go out and do things. Like lockdown would the first lockdown had kind of been eased off. So with the four-cross racing, obviously that had been cancelled that season. And then they put on a race beginning of September. And because I hadn't been going to the gym and I hadn't been feeling that fit, I decided not to race. I didn't feel race fit, so didn't go. So I spoke to my lad, and we went up. We'll just go up to Farmer John's Bike Park in Manchester, in Stockport, which will have a lad and dad day. So we went up there. Usual thing, like we go riding all the time. It's a part of training and it's fun, and So we've been there a couple of hours. I did a trail that it's lots of jumps and berms and things, and I hit this jump, which I'd done loads of times before. It wasn't anything new, wasn't anything to sort of think about, kind of thing. Hit it, overshot the jump, sort of landed on my front wheel, and then went over the handlebars. And as I hit the ground, obviously I went over and landed flat on my back. And I knew from then, as soon as I hit the floor, it was like I knew exactly what I'd done. And then unfortunately, Lucas, my youngest lad, he was following me. So we're going in as a train. So he comes over the jump and obviously sees me on the floor, sort of, well, probably screaming, because that's kind of what you do when you've broken your back. So it was quite traumatic for him at the time. Obviously, a few of the other riders and that came over, as far as I remember, got an ambulance called. I just remember sort of lying on my back. So I had an idea where my legs were, which felt straight. And then looking back at pictures later on, they're like, I'm in a Y shape with my toes sticking out the opposite, completely opposite direction to how your mind sort of feels your body. So there's a couple of lads there sort of comforting me and obviously telling me not to move, which I couldn't move anyway. So it felt like I had an elephant or a weight sort of stood on your chest, and ambulance came, must have gave me some painkillers to sort of numb the pain and sort of keep me at ease. And then while I was on the floor, I asked for my phone and phoned the wife, and then she sort of got in the car and shot up to me with with my stepson. And I think she rolled up just as I was getting lifted into the ambulance. And it was a scary time. But I don't know, being like a mountain biker and being involved in motorbike racing and stuff like that for so long, kind of felt sort of, even before my accident, I kind of felt prepared that something like this might happen. It wasn't a case of if, it was possibly when. So sort of going through my sort of rehab, and that helped me in a way to sort of deal with the situation, because it was something I kind of ruminated about and thought about. It was so that it wasn't such a surprise that it would happen.
Did you know straight away that you were paralysed?
Yeah, definitely.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. So because I didn't lose any consciousness or anything like that, 'cause I didn't bang my head. I just landed flat on my back.
Oh, wow.
So
what level are you?
I'm T8 complete.
Complete. Okay.
So, yeah.
And have you had any recovery since, like any sort of voluntary movement or sensation?
No, I wouldn't. I'd say not. I think I've sort of gained a little bit of control of maybe my abs, but like nothing. There's no movement in my legs or anything like that, really. So
yeah. So it's always the way, isn't it? I remember you saying, "Oh, it's just something I've done, 1,000 times before. Just overshot the jump a little bit, landed on your back, boom, snapped your spinal cord." And then you knew straight away that you were paralysed. That must have been pretty hard to deal with. How did you deal with that emotionally?
It sounds daft, but I've always thought of myself a bit sort of emotionally inept. So I'm more sort of matter of fact. So it was like, okay, I'm paralysed now. Let's get on with it. And maybe naively seeing other, like before my accident, maybe naively sort of seeing other paralysed people in wheelchairs, and getting on with their lives and seemingly doing great, which they are, obviously. That kind of helped put me at ease, thinking, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And it's a shit show being in a wheelchair, but you can make a life of yourself of it. It's not the end of a life; it's a change of life, isn't it? So that really helped me sort of get my head around it. So, well,
that's a fantastic attitude to have.
I had some dark thoughts and some a bit of depression, sort of 12, 18 months post injury, but I think I soon got over that. I mean, I remember early on when I got home after rehab, and I don't even know why I was feeling that way. Something must have happened, or I'd not been able to do something, and I was in the bathroom, and my wife Michelle, she was sat on the edge of the bath, and I got pissed off. I was like, oh, fuck it, I'm just gonna, may as well just throw myself down the stairs. And obviously she went to bits, and I was like, then I realised how that would impact her and impact my family, and that was it. Then it was like a turnaround. It was like, yeah, don't be a dick. Let's go on with this and get it done, because the impact it would have on the rest of my wife, the rest of the kids, and family, and everything, that would be devastating for them. And it's like those kind of dark thoughts soon disappeared. I did get some help through the NHS, like having some sort of sessions with a therapist, and that helped me get through that. And I say from sort of 18 months, 2 years in, that I'm not say cured, but those depressed thoughts don't sort of come in quite. So I have your down days, but I don't feel like I did sort of immediately after the injury.
Yeah, your story sounds very relatable. Like for me, when I got injured, when I was in rehab, it was when I first got injured, there was a lot of attention around me. There was a GoFundMe. There was a lot of again, I didn't really know anyone in wheelchairs, and I have to say, your attitude's very admirable. When you're like, oh, it's okay. People in wheelchairs live good lives. I didn't know anyone in a wheelchair, and I was terribly depressed for a little while. But when you're surrounded in intensive care and then in rehab, you've got this sort of purpose. You've got this sort of, I had an incomplete injury, so my goal was to sort of get back as much voluntary movement as possible. But then again, like 9 months after my injury, I was back at home. And when you're in rehab, the rehab center's designed for people in wheelchairs, and there's a lot of support. And then 9 months later, I was at home and I was like, oh, this sucks. Like my friends, I wasn't in my workplace. I wasn't in the places where I hung out with my friends. I felt isolated. I felt lonely. I wasn't on the slopes. I wasn't in the bars. I wasn't in my workplace. I felt incredibly isolated. And that's when I think for me, it came with a loss of identity as well. And my depression set in a lot, like, again, relatable to you, like afterwards, when you get home, it's like, it's not in the rehab center. It's like, oh shit, this is my life now, away from the rehab.
Yeah, you're in a little bubble in rehab, I think, which is great. But like you say, it all starts when you get home, doesn't it? And like we're still in the same house. We didn't move. We didn't go and find a bungalow or whatever. So when I first got home, I was sleeping in the dining room. We had an NHS bed and all that. And like you say, it's a bit of a struggle until you sort of find your feet, as a way, and get start adapting that your environment, and then that's that starts to help with the ongoing journey, kind of thing.
Yeah. How old are you, Mike?
I'm 47.
47. So you're 5 years older than me. And how many kids do you have? What's your family situation?
3 kids. Lucas, my youngest son, and then 2 stepkids, Ryan and Ellis, and they're mid-20s. They've moved away now, so I'm Bert the dog. So
yeah, nice. So I spoke to Mark Holland recently. Are you familiar with him? He had an accident mountain biking as well. Oh, I did a podcast with him. He's got 3 kids, and for me, the difference was when I didn't have any kids. I had a girlfriend at the time, but my life was turned upside down because I was a snowboarder, pretty decent. Like had my accident snowboarding. I was a chef in a busy kitchen. That loss of identity for me hit me really hard. But from what I've heard from people who have kids, they still identify as a father. It's just so in many ways, I went down a suicidal thoughts dark hole. And a lot of the people that I've spoken to that have children, they're like, well, obviously that's off the table because I'm a dad. I've got like a higher purpose. I might not be able to ride a bike or do stuff like that, but I've still got to a family to take care of. So do you think that played a part in your mentality?
Certainly, yeah. I'd like say sort of loss of identity would be my career. The only real, like, I'm still a mountain biker. I'm still a dad, still a husband. The only thing that has changed dramatically is the fact that I'm not an engineer anymore. I'm a house husband, so
Yeah.
That, like you say, having the kids and having that responsibility, that you can't go down that road. It's not an option.
So tell me more about. You said you lost your career. What was what did you do before, and why can't you do it anymore?
I was a precision engineer. Worked in a machine shop, operating a big CNC milling machine, and that wouldn't be practical day to day in a chair. I mean, I wouldn't even reach the console to type to type in the commands and stuff like that. I wouldn't be able to get onto the machine table to load things up. There was a CAD side of it that I probably could have done, and my employer was really great. Sort of post injury, he offered me a post in the office doing more sort of the computer side of it, the computer aided design side of it. But at the time, I don't think I'd have coped with doing that even part time. My head sort of wasn't in the game to do that. I mean, partly I was kind of looking for a way out of that career anyway, and I kind of lost the love. And I don't think having to go into work to do something that I didn't really want to do and not doing it properly, I don't think it would have helped me in my recovery state and in my mental state, to be fair. So, I mean, fortunately, we had an insurance policy that sort of pays me a wage. So we can afford that I can stay at home, sort of look after the house side of things. My wife works in the NHS, so obviously she's the main breadwinner now. But at least I felt guilty, kind of thing, to begin with, not going out and working, because I know wheelchair users, most people probably do work in my condition. But I feel more now that I am sort of contributing and I have got that sort of purpose. So that's sort of fading away, that sort of thing. But that's interesting. I don't really miss the engineering side of it. As I say, I was kind of looking to get out of it, but I didn't know where to go with it. So, every cloud, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a conversation on a podcast yesterday, actually, with Brittany, and we were talking about how some people, depending on how you get injured, some people can benefit financially from an injury, depending on certain, like if you're in America and you get injured in a car accident and the other person's liable and you have a big injury, then you can get a huge payout and you can benefit. It's kind of like an uncomfortable thing to talk about, but some people, if say, for example, if you're living in poverty and you get disabled, but then you get, I guess you're financially free, and it's kind of weird. So I had this conversation yesterday. Yeah. What would you rather be, financially free and disabled, or sort of poor and able-bodied? And to be totally honest, it's a lot of people, like my injury, for example, I've completely come to terms with it. I'm very happy living in a wheelchair. I live in a place here in France where the healthcare is fantastic. I've just started rehab again, which is really wonderful. And it's interesting how, again, it's a bit of an uncomfortable thing to talk about, but sometimes people, like I say, you kind of maybe have early retirement and you're like, well, I wouldn't choose this. Obviously, I'd still rather be able-bodied and be able to like cycle my bike properly. But it is a weird situation for some people. Obviously, some people get injured and they don't benefit financially at all, and it must suck a lot. But yeah, there is a small percentage of people that kind of benefit from it.
Yeah, it's kind of a trade-off, really, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, Mike, you said that you are still a mountain biker, and I love that you still identify as a mountain biker. So you got into adaptive mountain biking, and that's all your Facebook feed is full of. I love that we've become friends. But what was it like getting back into biking with adaptive equipment?
Brilliant. It's just back where I wanted to be. I mean, I look back at my searches and things that I'd put in my notes about 2 weeks after my accident, and I was searching for adaptive bikes then, like I was still in Salford Hospital before I even went into rehab, and I was searching for bikes because I'd seen I'd seen them before, so I was like, oh, I'm having one of them. So and to be able to, I've got two. I've got a Sport on X3, which is like pretty much a downhill mountain bike. It's full suspension, 14 gears. It's got electric motor, so it's pedal assist. And then I've got a recumbent, which is more of a conventional sort of one wheel at the front, hand cycle. I use that for fitness. But yeah, just being able to get out with Lucas and ride the trails again like we did before, hitting the same jumps that we were doing before. It's just something that I was aiming for. I was like, right, I need to be able to do it. I think I might be lost if I didn't have it, to be fair. Because, like you say, it was a big part of life, and I'd be able to keep hold of that. So,
yeah. That sounds fantastic, man. So you've reintegrated with the community rather quickly. Like, how long after your accident did you have your eye on that bike?
I say I was looking out for them pretty much straight away. And I think we went to see one at the dealership a few months after my accident. So I must have had the bike probably because there was a bit of a waiting list because of COVID and parts, and no one could get bike parts at the time. So it might have been sort of 12, 18 months after my accident that I got the bikes. And then we were straight out on them. And then since then I've met other wheelchair users that ride adaptive bikes, and we team up for rides sort of at Forest of Dean and other bike parks and things. And I know I'm riding with my friends that I was riding with previously. So yeah, to have that back, it's been brilliant.
Yeah. What was it hard coming to terms with the secondary complications of your injury?
In what, like bowel and bladder and all that?
Yeah. For example, when people see, when I used to see people pushing a wheelchair, I just thought their legs didn't work, and it was a shock to me when I was told that I had to use catheters and sort of manual stimulation, bowel and bladder, and sexual function, all these wonderful things that come along with a spinal cord injury. Was that hard to deal with?
Initially, yes, but the more you repeat something, the more it just becomes the norm. I've been lucky with bowel and bladder that I don't suffer too much with incontinence or anything like that. Sexual function, you can go longer. So it's actually a bit of a slightly things seem to compromise a little bit, but there are some benefits to it.
I can relate.
Yeah. So yeah, it's difficult to begin with. I think I've been lucky so far, and in a way I'm kind of waiting to have the problems. I've had one UTI which I had while I was in hospital because I did an indwelling catheter, which you can't. It's common to get those. I've not really had any issues regarding that yet, but I know it's all stuff that I know will come down the line at some point. So like pressure sores, I've been fortunate enough not to suffer with that, but I know they're going to be coming. It's just
not necessarily
like, it's in the back of your mind, isn't it?
If you're careful.
Yes, true, but like I haven't had a public shitting myself yet, but it's on the cards, isn't it? At some point,
certainly. Yeah, that certainly could be more likely. Yeah, you could probably avoid a pressure sore, but at some point you're probably due.
It's going to happen at some point.
Yeah.
I mean, I came close about a month or so ago and was just getting into bed, and I think I was taking my shoes off and I bent down. And, hang on, that's not a fart. So like it was like 10 o'clock in the evening, and then so I went to the and then with the shower and all that. So it was like 1 o'clock before I got settled him into bed by then. So, but it's coming. I know, but
at least it was at home.
For, it?
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
I went to a wedding at the weekend, and it was great. But I shat myself just before. Again, it's not something I suffer with but I was so grateful because if you're going to shit yourself, my favorite place to do it is here at home, and I was like, wow, if it was half an hour later, it would have been like during the ceremony. So it was a bullet dodged, and it was an opportunity for gratitude. But I felt flustered because I arrived at the wedding and I was running late, and I was meant to bring a tripod for the groom because he wanted to film it for his dad that couldn't make it, and I was like, oh my God, and obviously he wasn't bothered. It was his big day, but yeah, I just turned up like quite flustered because it does. Even when it happens at home, it's still unpleasant. It's still, it's still like, wow, of course it is. What's going on? Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, so look, you were lucky it wasn't at the wedding itself, but it's
absolutely.
But it's like knowing that's on the cards, but like being prepared for it. So like I've got stuff in my chair, just in case that happens. So kind of puts you at ease a little bit, but it's still a bit. I imagine it'd still be a bit embarrassing or uncomfortable. So, but
yeah,
it's on the cards at some point. It's got to be.
Yeah, well, at least I think you've got a very admirable attitude towards the injury. Especially, it sounds like you might have had certain mental health issues, which are, I guess, very what's the word I'm looking for? Predictable, but at the same time, not as bad as a lot of people. You seem to have taken it in your stride.
Yeah, as I say, I'm very matter of fact, and so is my wife. So like when issues like this or situations like this come up, we're quite solid together, and we don't sort of get in a flap or stressed and that. So that was a big help that we can work through things and overcome shit shows of like a situation like this.
How has your perspective on life changed since your injury?
More, I think my ego's come down a little bit maybe. I'm a bit more humble perhaps, and more appreciative of things, which I think would only be natural when you lose something like your mobility is reduced. I wouldn't say you lose your mobility. That's not true at all. It's like when we go for a walk, like she'll say, "Oh, it's a long way, so I'll push you. So don't worry about it. Let's go." Like, life is good. It's great. It's just different, and takes a little bit more planning here and there.
So what advice would you give to someone who's newly injured?
Stand and stretch. Don't skip on your stretching because, as I say, probably maybe you get up in the morning and think, "Oh, I've got to do this," and then I'll stretch later. It's like yesterday. My plan was to do a couple of things, get on stretch, and it was like 5-6 o'clock before I even got into doing my stretching. And I'd say exercise as well is important. I go to the gym twice a week, and like before my injury, I started training. I was doing CrossFit in the gym and riding my bikes and that, because I wanted to be strong and fit to race my bike. Well, now I kind of train just to make life easier. So to be the strongest you can be, and like that will help you in your transfers and stuff like that. And if you're confident that if you fall out your chair, you're strong enough to get back in, then it opens the world up a little bit more to you because you're not worrying about those kind of things. So
I've noticed you're pretty jacked actually.
I'm getting there. Yeah, I mean, it's like the legs used to be the stronger part of me, but now I'm obviously concentrating on the upper body to make things easier for myself. So
it's the perfect excuse to skip leg day.
Yeah, I think I've actually got a Deadpool t-shirt with like "Don't skip leg day." It's got the little baby legs sticking out.
So I've noticed that some of the again, I really only know you from the things that you post on social media, but you seem to I've seen you do some pretty good exercises. You look pretty jacked. Your arms are pretty big. I think I can relate to that as well. I think it's maybe sometimes I think it's overcompensating, but like you say, to stay a healthy weight, you have to acknowledge that with a sedentary lifestyle, you have to be responsible with like eating healthier and maintaining upper body fitness. And I think what you said about exercise is great, because it is so important, especially after your injury. The stronger your arms are, they're the only two limbs that work now. So you've got to make the most of them. And the lighter your body is, the more easier you can lift. And like you say, you're not. Yeah. Your mobility has changed, but if your arms are strong and your body is light, then it helps a lot with your mobility and your transfers and everything like that.
Yeah, I fell out of a mountain trike 2 days ago walking the dog. I
saw that.
So the mountain trike, I don't know if you've seen one, but it's got like levers that you push. It's like an off-road chair, and it's got disc brakes, so you hit the brakes, it stops pretty quick. Yeah. So the dog's running off, and he smelt something interesting. So as he stopped, I slammed on, hit the brakes, and I hadn't put my belt on. I just slid sort of gracefully off the front of the chair. But I could get on the chair, but every time I tried to get my upper body up, my bum kept sliding off the edge of the seat again. So I did actually need help, and luckily somebody turned up and just sort of helped me back into my chair. But I mean, I got there eventually, and like when I was on the floor, I was like, okay, yeah, it's like I see it more of like when I fall out my mountain bike as well. I see it more of a challenge. So like, okay, let's see how we're going to get around this and sort this transfer and that. But having that strength behind you doesn't make it an issue. It's like you say, it's more of a challenge than a disaster.
I really like to frame things like that as a challenge as well. If I fall out of my wheelchair in public, it's kind of easier to just accept the help rather than like, no, I've got this. And then they watch me struggle for 5 minutes.
Yeah, making it more of an issue of it kind of thing.
Yeah. So, but if I very rarely fall out of my wheelchair actually, but it's if it does happen, I prefer to see it as a challenge. And I hate people pushing my wheelchair. My wheelchair doesn't have handles for a reason. It's kind of I'm always I think you can relate to that as well.
Definitely. We were in Tenerife just after Lucas's GCSEs. We had a bit of a holiday. We're in a water park, Siam Water Park. It's a big. I think it's like the biggest in Europe, or something. And they've basically built it on the side of a hill. It's like that everywhere. And there was like people trying to help, and like the missus is walking behind me, and I'm pushing up this hill, sort of thing. And the missus is walking behind me, and people are scouring at her. Like, no, help him. I'm like, no, leave him alone. I'm like, people are trying to help him. No, thanks, I'm good, thank you. There's reason there's no handles on this.
My girlfriend gets the same, actually. In fact, I pushed up, when I went back to the UK recently, I pushed up the steepest hill in Southampton. I didn't realise it was the steepest hill in Southampton until after I'd done it, but I knew it was a very steep hill, and I was like, my mission is to push up this. And if she wasn't there, it's really hard for you to be like, no, actually, I'm trying to do this. It's a challenge. People would rush over and try and push you up, but because she was there, filming on the phone, people were like, go on, my son, go on, get it. So yeah, it was. They were cheerleading.
The crowd behind you.
Yeah. So that was good. But yeah, it's a weird thing about accepting help. It's because if you accept help, then you're accepting that I'm helpless. I get it when people open doors for me. I push the door. And I've wheeled through the door, but they run over and they hold it, and I'm like, I'm already through the door. Like,
I've done it already. Yeah.
Yeah. So I get it that it comes from a place of wanting to help. It comes from a noble place, but it's weirdly unwelcome, because I feel like I'm just the same as you, man. I'm just wheeling through the door. I don't need, it feels weird. I'm not in a big hospital chair. I'm not. I don't know. I'm disabled, but I'm able. Yeah.
Well, people see the chair first, don't they, really? It's like, I'll park up in the supermarket or whatever and like get my chair out the car. And people ask me, do you want a handle? How do you think I got here?
Yeah.
It's like, I put it in here, I can get it out. So, but thank you anyway. Yeah. But you kind of feel a bit of a dick sometimes. So it's like, oh, no, I don't need your help. But,
yeah,
I know. So,
you're absolutely right.
Like say, in some situations, it's worth just sort of accepting it. Thanks.
Yeah, I sometimes do feel like a dick because I feel like it's almost like a passive-aggressive move on their part, but it's not. It's coming from a noble place. But I'm like, no, I'm all right, thanks. Like I got all the way here, especially if I'm at the gym and I'm going to the gym and people are like, oh, I'm going to the gym, man. I'm going to go lift weights. Like you could, I don't need you to hold the door open for the, that's, I don't know, like I say, it comes from a place of them wanting to help. But yeah, sometimes I do feel a bit guilty because I kind of maybe overreact sometimes because it's just the straw, there's like an extra straw that breaks the camel's back and you're like, God damn it, I don't need help with the door.
That's it.
I've got a question for you. If you could go back and prevent your injury, would you?
I think I probably would, yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Tell me more.
I'm trying to think now whether I've put myself in a place. I don't know. I mean, no one ever wants to be in a wheelchair, do they? And I wouldn't like. I just one thing. Although I'm back mountain biking and I'm doing my adaptive mountain biking, which is great, I haven't got the competitive side of it so much. Whereas, like, I've not been able to continue doing my 4-cross racing. So that would be one thing that I would like to still have. It's like the season before my accident, Lucas, my son, started racing, so we were both racing together, and we've got we podiumed together, and we've got trophies together, and like it was a kind of nice. That kind of thing. So, yeah, maybe because of that, and life's easier when you can walk, isn't it? It's hard in the chair. If you stick at it and like you keep positive, everything's great, but you're kind of on a knife edge sometimes. I am happy, but it takes a little bit more effort to be happy. If that kind of makes sense, I don't know.
No, it makes sense a lot. But if you the way I see it is, if you go back and prevent your injury, you would actually prevent all the life lessons that you've learned. So all the personal growth that you've gone through. And all the insights that you've had would also disappear as well, because you just sort of, I guess, you'd reclaim that ignorance moving on.
True. And I'm probably sort of changing my answer a bit now. I think I'm probably a better person now than I was before. I think I've got a bit more empathy to the world, and I'd definitely say I'm a better person than I was. Maybe my wife might disagree, but I'm possibly a bit less of a dick than I was before. I don't know.
Yeah, that's relatable too. I definitely think the personal growth that I've gone through, I've definitely changed immensely. And my answer would be I wouldn't take it back for sure. It's been interesting. It's made me who I am today. So if I took it back, I'd be someone different. And I don't know. Yeah.
Can I retract my answer?
Yeah, of course. It's not set in stone. But when I was able-bodied, I think I was I like to think that I wasn't, but I think I was a little bit more entitled. I often say that when I was snowboarding, instead of being completely grateful for the wonderful gift of having all 4 limbs working, I would complain that the snow was a bit shit, that the lift lines were very long, there were too many people on the slopes, and looking back now, I'd be like, oh, what the hell, man? You had everything. You had it all. You were just, yeah. So, yeah.
Do you get back on the slopes at all now, shit skiing or anything like that?
No, I tried. I've tried it a few times, and I just had to admit that I didn't like it. It's cold. My legs get really spazzy, and my feet are freezing. And it's not the same. Like, I was kind of like an elite level snowboarder. So getting back on the slopes, it's difficult because I would remember being like, oh, there would be a bit where I could maybe like do a backflip and it'd be under the lift line, and I could hear people from the lift being like, "Woo, that's cool." So I was like one of the cool kids, and now I'm sort of in this awkward contraption. I can't even get on the lift on my own without people helping me, and it just wasn't the same. Like, it wasn't the same physically. Also, the potential for injury is huge. You're flying down and you've got these 2 arms holding outriggers. And I thought, if I fall at the wrong angle, boom, there goes a rotator cuff, and how am I going to do my bowel program? Like, is it going to affect, is a further injury going to affect my life? And I guess maybe that comes from a weird place of fear. I think I'm more scared now. Before I was so fearless. And I think maybe I'm a little bit more cautious these days after my accident. But it just wasn't something that interested me. On the flip side, though, adaptive mountain biking, I absolutely loved it. I was on a Quadrix. Are you familiar with what a Quadrix is?
No, I've not seen that one. I've not seen
So
it.
it's like a 4-wheel adaptive bike rather than a trike. So it's not great at cornering because it's got 4 wheels, but it's got 4 independent suspensions. And I was absolutely loving that. In fact, the guy was like, dude, you got to slow down. I was like, no, man, speed is your friend.
No.
And he was like, no, seriously, if you have an accident, you're going to ruin not only your day, but you're going to ruin the day for everyone. Just dial it back a notch. And I was like, oh, okay. But I was trying to keep up with this guy on a bike, and I was right on his tail. And he was like, Jesus, man, I was flying, and you were going really fast. And I was like, I know. And I got that thrill back. But at the same time, it's a little bit more, well, I admire you for getting back into it. I guess you've got a bit more of a community around you, but for me, in order to like get, for example, like a bow head, it would be number one, really expensive, and then you'd need a garage to keep it in and some sort of trailer to carry it places. It's not like just hopping, putting the bike in the car, or like just hopping on the bike, and just cycling to the lift or something. I live in Morzine, so geographically I'm placed perfectly for downhill biking. But once you say, for example, I rode the bowhead or any adaptive bike to the lift, I'm stuck there. It's not like you can get off. And there's a lot of logistical issues. And maybe I'm making excuses, but I think I would love to get into it. I really, really would.
Yeah, if you get the opportunity, I would get one, definitely.
Yeah. So, but like I say, I don't have the space for it. They're enormous,
Yeah, the reason you can see I'm in the shed. The reason we got this shed is because the garage is full of bikes and wheelchairs. There was nowhere to do anything else. So like one of them's hung up on the ceiling, and the others go underneath it and everything. So I mean, the lad's got three of his own regular bikes. I've got the 2 bikes. The wife's got a bike. My off-road wheelchair. There was just toys everywhere.
I've got
pairs of shoes.
Yeah, I've got a hand cycle that attaches to my wheelchair, which is great. I love it. It gets me out and about. It's brilliant, but it's really tippy, and it's nowhere near suitable for adaptive trails or anything like that. But it is really fun. But again, I'm lucky. I live in a place where that just lives outdoors, and I don't need to lock it up or anything. I don't even lock my door when I go out. It's a beautiful little place where it was very safe. But I've got 3 wheelchairs, a wheelchair bike. My girlfriend's got a bike as well. And so if another big adaptive bike, I just genuinely don't have the room for it. And again, it's not like you can just put it in the car. I'd need some sort of trailer to get it places. I guess
a little van or something.
Yeah, so I think I would need to rent one. Probably would be the best one. To be the best way. And I know that you can rent them in Chamonix, which is just down the road. So I should look into it, really, to be honest. I think I've become a bit of a homebody since my accident. My girlfriend's really pushing me outside the comfort zone a lot, trying to get me out more. But yeah, I think I've just sort of reclused a little bit.
If you're ever back in the UK, I'm sure we can set you up on go on my adaptive bike or something.
Yeah, I would love that. Do you know a guy called Pete Harris? Maybe not. He was injured. He was trying to.
I think he might be on the Bowhead chat. I don't. Yeah, I may have met him. I'm not sure. Yeah.
So he was trying to arrange something for me when I went back to the UK in June. We were going to go ride Bowhead bikes together, and I was so stoked about it. But unfortunately, the guy who was doing it, he let us down at the last minute. I'm not sure what the reason was, but it was unfortunate. We just caught up and had a coffee, went bowling, and he let me have a go on his tri-ride thing, which he'd souped up to go like 40 miles an hour. So that was really. I only got it up to 20, and I was like, Jesus, this has got another 20. Yeah, so it was really, really fun to just buzz around on that, and we just caught up. Do you find that like when you meet people with spinal cord injuries, you have this sort of catalyst for connection? I don't know how many people you know in the spinal cord injury, but I feel like I get on well with everyone I meet.
Yeah, of course, because you live in similar lifestyles, aren't you? So like you have so many relatable situations. Like conversations come really easily, and you make friends really easily, I think. Yeah, definitely.
So you say that you ride with your youngest son, Lucas. How old is he? You said he was 8, I think.
No, he's 17. He was 17 last
17.
week.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Right. Excellent. Oh, that's amazing. So that's so cool. So that's really cool that you guys can ride together.
Yeah. Well, let's say that was really important to me, that I get that part of life back, because since he was on a balance bike, we'd be going to trail centres and riding. So, and probably important for him as well, because like that, it would have been a big thing. It's nice that he's got into his teenage years and he still wants to ride with me. Because he doesn't want to go off and do other things. Like, so,
yeah, that is quite nice actually.
It's very important to me.
So he was there on the day of your accident. Was it traumatic for him seeing that happen? Yeah.
Yeah, it was tough for him. He would he been 13, 14? Yeah, it did affect him for a good few months afterwards. He wasn't quite himself, but he bounced. Kids are resilient, aren't they? And he has bounced back. He's a great lad. I love him to bits.
Nice. What are you more grateful for now than compared to before your injury?
I'm not really sure. Just I don't know.
That's all right. That's a perfectly good answer. I don't think I've got any more questions for you, Mike. I thought this conversation might run a little longer, but I think we got there in the end. I'm really grateful for you coming on and telling your story. Is there anything you want to add before we bring it home? Is there any questions you've got for me or anything like that?
One, I think if you're newly injured, it does get easier, and like if you are in that sort of dark place or low place, which inevitably you're going to be, that stick at it and just, I know it's hard, but try and be positive, and things will get easier and better in the end, definitely. And you will have, you can have a fulfilling life in a chair.
I would add to that is like the first time you try anything is always the hardest. So I've told this story a few times, but it's worth repeating. The first time I went for a poo on my own, it took me 3 hours. So the next time I went for a poo, it took me 2 hours, and I was stoked because it was like an hour off my personal best, So it's interesting. The first time you try anything is really hard. So I would try not to be discouraged, especially, for example, if you're learning floor transfers, which is a really difficult skill to learn. But you will get there. Like, don't give up. Like, the first time you try it, you're like, this is impossible. And then maybe the 50th time you'll try it is like, well, I can see it's possible, but it's still really hard. But then once you get it, you're like, oh, excellent. It's just like there's a knack to it of getting back in the chair. And I think there's a great quote, which a lot of people overestimate what they can do in a month and underestimate what they can do in a year. So, like, if you're struggling, just try and extend your time horizon and be like, what goals do I want to achieve in like 1 year from now or 5 years from now? And then work slowly towards that, because I think there's a lot of important skills that are important to learn. And also there's a great life to be had. And sometimes if you're in that acute stage before your injury, it's very, very hard to see. But I think you're a great example of living a full life after injury. And I think I fall into that category as well.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I mean, like going on to say about learning skills and that, I mean, like we were asking about advice before, is like watch YouTube, watch other wheelchair users and see how they do it. And then try and emulate what people are doing, because you might find a different way of doing it that's easier for you. Or you might not even realize that something might be possible. And just stick at it, try it. And like you say, your bowel routine, you might get that down to however many hours or half an hour or whatever. Or you think a floor transfer is going to be impossible for me to do, but you watch other people do it and just stick at it, practice, and then it'll come, like you say.
Yeah. When it comes to the bowel program nowadays, it takes me between 5 and 10 minutes, probably, honestly, 5-6 minutes.
I wish.
Yeah, well, I think it has a lot to do with diet. Like I've increased a lot of the amount of fiber that's in my diet. I do have a lower injury, and mine is incomplete as well. So I've got abs I can sort of squeeze. But yeah, like a lot more fiber in my diet, a lot more like drinking lots of water after my meals really helps. They're tiny little tips, but more fiber, more liquid, and Bob's your uncle. I'm like, oh, it's coming out, a lot easier. So rather than
Good.
sort of trying to, I'll save the analogies. It's
Yeah, you go on all day about that.
yeah. Well, Mike, this was a wonderful chat, man. I'm really glad that you came on the podcast and we had this chat. Where can people go if they want to find you online and see what you're up to?
Michael Juice on Instagram. And again, Michael Juice on Facebook. So yeah,
Cool.
I'm there, floating about.
I'll pop the links in the description. I'll pop the links in the description so people can have a look at what you're up to on the bike. You actually sent me a hell of a load of videos and photos in preparation for this podcast. No, it was great. It was absolutely brilliant. One of the videos I really liked was the one that you bumped up a little curb in rehab and then just wheeled off the other side and fell down. That was actually really quite amusing. But yeah, that's one of those things, isn't it? Like, again, the first time you do it, it's almost hilariously, it's a unfortunate calamity. But then the more you do it, the more you know. I've seen your wheelchair skills are pretty decent now. In fact, didn't you say that you were injured in September 2020? Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
So it must be coming up 4 years for you now.
Yeah, 4 years. Yeah, 4 years. A couple of weeks ago. Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
And I think I only spent 12 weeks in rehab, or 12 weeks in hospital altogether. I think they were sort of fast because of COVID again. They were kind of fast tracking the rehab procedures, so the sooner they could get people back out of the hospitals, the better. So I possibly didn't get quite as much rehab as I would have done without COVID being hanging over us.
Yeah, but like you say, there's a lot of good resources online, a lot of YouTube tutorials, and lots of things that you can learn. In fact, I wasn't even in a spinal unit. I was in a generalized rehab area, and I learned so much from YouTube. I learned the bowel program. Like, they were pumping me through full of laxatives and just getting me to sit down, and I was like shitting myself, and I was like, what the hell is this going to be like forever? And then when I realized that, oh no, you rubber glove, bit of lube up the bum, and then you're like, oh, I was like, this is how you do it, blimey. And I went from sitting on the toilet waiting for these laxatives to kick in to like watching a YouTube video and being like, oh, that's how you do it. I couldn't believe they didn't tell me that. So yeah, so I guess that's another tip for you. If you do have limited rehab, there are many years online that you can find out if you're newly injured, and yeah.
Well, I was taking like five Senna a day and going to the toilet every day initially.
Oh, wow.
And now I'm down to 2 and only go into the toilet every other day. So
interesting.
That frees things up so much more. So, but yeah, but like you say, they just sort of pile you full of laxatives and just hope for the best.
Yeah, that's interesting. What did you go to a spinal unit?
Yeah, so initially I was taken to Salford Hospital on the general ward. That's where I had my operation and everything. 2 weeks there. Then I got transferred to Southport Spinal Rehab. And we asked if I could have a transfer to Robert Jones and Agnes Hunt, which is in Shropshire. There's another rehab centre there. So I spent 4 weeks in Southport, and then got transferred to the spinal unit in Robert Jones and Agnes Hunt's Orthopaedic Hospital. And I'd say I had the last 6 weeks at that facility. So that was really good.
Nice. Did you make any friends in?
Not that I'm in contact with now, no. There was a good camaraderie amongst everyone on the ward. And so obviously we sort of relate to one another and sort of help each other through the situation while in rehab, but I didn't sort of have any contact with anybody outside of that.
Yeah, because a quite common thing is for people when they're injured, they're all sort of facing the new injury together, and they're like, oh shit, and you can see some people that are injured a little bit more and a little bit less, and yeah, so I don't know. A lot of people I've spoken to have made friends in the spinal unit, and they've been sort of, I guess, like going on the journey sort of, I guess, together. Like, it's interesting. If you get interested, that didn't happen to me because I was in a generalized rehab area and there were a lot of French speaking people. My French is conversationally pretty good, but it's not the same as like speaking in your native tongue. So yeah, I didn't have that, but I know a lot of people. Yeah, I can imagine if you get injured and you have a spinal cord injury at the same time as other people, then you're sort of that day zero is the same. So when you guys have your 1 year anniversary, it kind of all coincides together. I can imagine there would be a certain level of camaraderie there.
Yeah, and there's always a mountain biker on the ward as well, or at least one. I think there was about 2 or 3 when I was on there. So. Yeah.
Well, thanks again for sharing your story, Mike. I really appreciate it, and I'll chuck the links in the description. And you're very welcome. It's been great. Until next time, take care.
Take care. See you later.
Cheers. Well, we hope you enjoyed that conversation and it gave you something to think about. Now, if you'd like to support the podcast, please hit subscribe, as this will mean you will get recommended new episodes as they drop every week. If you think there is someone that would enjoy listening to this, then please share it with them, as word of mouth recommendations are the #1 way to grow new podcasts like this. But most importantly, love yourselves and each other, and we'll see you in the next episode. That was a good one.